I'll do a quick intro. It's probably like my 10th year in a row here at UCLS, but I'm Sean Herring, um, out of Orem with a company called ProSoft. I'm actually now the VP of ProSoft, so it's kind of fun to be here in a little different capacity, but still getting to do the same thing that I enjoy doing. So, um, Chad asked me to go over some drafting for surveyor stuff, so I'm going to go over some old stuff, some new stuff, some stuff that I use, some tips and tricks, and then obviously if you guys have any questions, you just feel free to jump right in. So I'm going to go through several different scenarios, and I am recording it, so if you guys want the video afterwards, it's being recorded here, so hopefully I'm talking loud enough for it to pick it up. So. But again, jump in any point, anytime, yell some questions. If I don't see you raise your hand, just yell. Oh, and here's Andy. I gave him the pin, so at least I did one thing right so far.
I just wanted to highlight two things real quick. I'll let you get going. Sorry. I don't know if my voice carried the yours.
I'm used to yelling at a bunch of teenagers now, coaching softball, so
Yeah.
it's getting good.
Okay. Just a quick reminder that the scholarship auction's going on, and we got raffle tickets in there too. So, and that in the middle section, right around the foundation banners, there's some items that Walt Cunningham used. These are his family's donated those. So if you're interested in any of that, some old tripods and Philly rods. So those are there for that. And then if you registered and haven't gotten the monument medallion or a mug, make sure you pick one of those up. And the calendars are limited this year. We kind of cut back on the calendars because we had extras usually. So if you want one of the calendars with the maps on the back, make sure you grab one early. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Sean.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Yeah. So I'm going to start out with survey databases first. Survey database has been around for a little while. There's some newer things over the last couple of versions that I like that we'll use. So I'm going to quickly go through the setup of it, bring in some survey data, use it in a couple different ways. Utilizing survey queries and point queries different than point groups. I'll get into some recap stuff. There's some cool new things with recap with point clouds. Some auto feature extraction stuff in the cloud. So I'll get into a little bit of that, some classification, some ground cleanup stuff, and recap. The cloud-based version, Autodesk Docs, I'll touch base on that because that's where you do the feature extraction. And then I'll get into some GIS data, using state LiDAR data or even drone data. But a lot of us have issues with large surfaces and just kills our computers. It kills the files. So I've got a few ways that I use the large surfaces to kind of help in that instance. So we'll get into that. And then I got some other stuff written down. So, and again, if you guys have questions, feel free. On the survey database, so for those not using it, it's a very simple setup. I'm not going to go through a ton of the setup because it is pretty straightforward, but on the settings tab, there is a little bit of survey setup you have to do prior to bringing in some stuff on using the survey database. And all that is really is setting up your figures, your figure styles. This is the main thing here that you would have to set up is under survey and figures, just setting up those figure styles. And those are the same as feature lines at the end of the day. They're just in a different spot called survey figures. So I've got a few put in here, but you can have any style that you want for anything out in the field. Fences, ditches, concrete, curb, sidewalk, whatever you want to put in there. And all it is to set those up. It's a simple task. I'm just going to right click and go to new. It's as easy as naming it. So I don't know, we'll go sidewalk. There's some plan and model settings. That's just if you want to see the vertices, yes or no. You just tell it yes or no. markers, things like that. 3D geometry, it's going to use the figure elevations. That's kind of the point in doing it, so I wouldn't quite change it. But really the main thing is here on the display tab. All it is your layer, figure line here. I'm just going to put it to existing sidewalk or concrete, one of those layers. Color and line type. So there couldn't be an easier thing to set up, and then I'll turn off the vertice markers. That's the first step in using the survey databases. So super simple. It's just setting up those figure styles, whatever you want it to draw for you. I won't go through them all, but that's about it as far as the settings tab on the survey side. Now on the survey tab, there's a couple databases here. There's this line work code set one. I'm just going to right click. You can either right click and new, or I'll just right click and edit this. But the code set tells your lines what to draw and how to draw it. So for example, I use B for begin. So if it needs to begin a feature line or survey figure, you'd put in B. That can be at the beginning. Scroll down here, go through a little bit more. That can be at the beginning of your figure, your line. So I just put my B here, or it could even be here at the end. So it really doesn't matter where you place that.
Well, for instance, we don't suppose how or we get future and also what speed to get to the product curve.
Okay.
Frank, I would say not at the on the able to have a recognize both of those as we can.
As a begin? I haven't tried that, but there's only one begin area. We can try it. Well, let's try it. Let's go begin. About to find out. So I don't know. I've never done that, but I could see it not working if I had to choose one way or another. But we'll find out. So all those codes are very simple. Just begin, end. You usually use just a handful, right? You got begin, end, close. If you had like a building you wanted to close or something to close up, a parcel, property, anything there that you want to close. And then your curve, begin curve, point on curve, anything like that that can just be put in there. And it can be pretty much anything. I've seen people use numbers where it's 1 is the beginning and 2 is the end or something, but anything you want to put in there. So you've got to set that up. You've got to set up your figure prefix database. This takes a little bit longer. So if I come here to this one, again, we can either go new, or I'm going to edit this UCLS one I just created. And you've got to set that up. This could be a pretty lengthy list. But I've got things in here like lip, brake lines, fences, back a walk, buildings, property. And all it is building that out. So if you had, let's say TBC, we can just hit the plus sign here to add another one. This will copy that. So if you've got like on this lip one, for example, it's set up to use the curb style. You can copy that one and it creates a copy of that line. I'm just going to go TBC. You tell it if it's a brake line or now, and I'll show you, it's really irrelevant unless you use some of the queries, and I'm going to use some of these queries to build a surface. So I am going to say that it is a brake line, this TBC. Is it a lot line, yes or no? I'm going to say no. I do have one in here for my property. Let's say we go out and we survey a bunch of property corners. I do have one in here that's marked parcel. Because what it's going to do is create a parcel with area and all that for you. So I do have that marked as a lot line. You tell it the layer, you tell it the style, and you give it a site. And you can see in here, I've got the survey site, that could be named anything. And then I've got this parcel data site for my lot lines. Other than that, those are only 2 sites I have currently for the survey databases.
Sign.
The sites are, if you don't want objects to interact with each other, like for example, let me show you this real quick. And this is actually really important when it comes to feature lines and survey figures. Because if I have a crossing feature line, let's just turn this into a feature line. I'm going to put it in the feature line site, give it an elevation of 500. Let's say I've got another crossing line and I put this in the exact same site, so the feature line site, but I put this at elevation 1,000. If I were to look at these, that feature line that crossed, the second one that I put in, it pulled that other one, the crossing location, up to that elevation 1,000. So the site, so if I do that again, but I put it in a different site, so same thing here. I'm going to just throw it in the parcel site for no reason here. If I put it in a different site, it doesn't even recognize that the two exist. So they're not pulling that elevation. So if you have crossing break lines in your survey data or something, and they're in the same site, or if you have your survey data and like a design file on top of it, you could have some crazy things going on if you don't use different sites. So if you want them to talk to each other, then keep them in the same site. If you don't put them in a site. Pretty much it. And that's really alignments and parcel, or excuse me, feature lines and parcels is the only time I ever worry about sites. Again, I'm not going to build this whole figure prefix database, but it's those two databases that you need to run the field to finish. So the line work code set, the figure prefix database. I don't know if anybody ever actually edits this. Does anyone ever edit this equipment database that uses this? That's good, because I don't think it actually matters. So this is just standard deviations and all sorts of weird stuff that I couldn't even explain how you would get that info to edit it. So I ignore that. But instead of bringing in my points just with insert points from file, I'm just going to come here to the survey tab. I'm going to right click on survey databases and do a new local survey database. We'll call this UCLS 2024. Hit OK. And then just real quick, I want to take a quick look at this point file. Most of the stuff I have in here, I begin and end and all that, but in this case, you'll see in my curb and gutter, the very first shot, and you can do this afterwards. You don't have to key this in the field. You could do this after you get the survey data downloaded. But I've got some horizontal offsets and some vertical offsets. So I shot the edge of pavement, but it's going to draw in the edge of pavement, the flow line, top of curb, or top front and top back. If I wanted to, I could continue on and put like, horizontal 5 feet, bad, and put in the sidewalk lines if I wanted to. So it's going to give me that curb and gutter profile in this case. So again, that's something that you don't have to key in the field, but if you know it's a standard 30-inch or 24-inch, you can put that information in your point file afterwards when you run it. So I'm going to close that real quick. Okay, so I've got the survey database created. I do want to take a look at properties, not my properties here. When I go to import it, it always defaults to international feet. It's just a Civil 3D thing. So when we go to import the data, I'll show you where we got to check that. But I'm going to come here to import events. Depending on your version that you use, you may not see these here. These are all in some different queries. Some queries here and some different settings here that we'll go over. So it may look slightly different. But I'm going to right click. I'm going to import the survey data. Database is already there. Let's edit the database settings. This is where it always defaults to international foot. So I'm going to change that. The rest of these are all set up correctly. So that's the only change. You can set your coordinate zone if you want. It's set in the drawing, so it's going to read the drawing coordinate zone.
Even if you've got it set for US feet,
Even if you have your template and your drawing set for US feet, yep.
it still puts it in.
Yeah. Just the survey database. Yeah. Yep. The data source types, we got point file, field book, XML, and if you did insert your points into the drawing, maybe it's an older drawing, you can have it read the points in the drawing. I'm going to go with the point file. Just going to add that point file here, just like I would any other point file. Open that up, set my format. I'm going to hit next here. The networks don't really matter. If you had like a day 1 survey, a day 2 survey, you could have separate networks. I tend to go without the networks. I have had linear long, like 2-mile projects where I've done like mile 1, mile 2, but I'm going to skip the networks here. Import options, as long as we're set to use the correct figure prefix database and the correct line work code set, it's going to process this the way we want it. There's also insert point survey points and insert figure objects. At that point, I'm just going to hit finish. Give it a second here. Okay, so it brought in all that line work. It brought in all my points. Depending on some other stuff, we'll get into point groups in a minute. It could bring in your symbols, fire hydrants, street lights, things like that, monuments, so forth. You can see here that it brought in my curb and gutter, and then it did the offsets for that curb and gutter. So it'll save me a little bit of time doing that stepped offset or just offsetting or recreating those lines. I did. Is my computer? I thought my computer was plugged in. One sec. There we go. Yeah, so this did the vertical. Let me just grab this here. It may not be the best view. Kind of hard to tell, but it did do the vertical offset. So my lip, low line, and then the top back. When I create the surface, you'll also see that. But yeah, it does the horizontal and the vertical offsets. And if I open up that file again real quick, all of this, so when I have beginning of the begin lip or edge of asphalt, whatever you want to call it, it's got the horizontal and then it has a vertical. So it's going over 1.5 feet, down, in this case, 2 inches. And it's all based off of the lip. So I go 1.6 feet and then up 4 inches or whatever the profile is, over 2 feet, up 3 or 4 inches. So again, you can do that afterwards. I find it easier just to key it in afterwards. And
side of that.
yeah, so let me try to draw this here. We've got the edge of asphalt there. I go over 1.5 feet and down 2 inches. So 1.5 feet and down 2 inches. So that's my horizontal and that's my vertical offset of negative. And then the next one is over 1.6 feet and then up. In this case, I did 4 inches, so it goes here. So I end up with a point or a feature line there, there, there. My final one is an offset of 2 feet. And then again, 0.33 or 4 inches above my lip in this case.
What? Right, well.
It's a good question. The direction that the direction you shot it, or the direction from beginning to end. So, and the other one, if I scroll down a little bit, I actually have a horizontal change of negative 1.5. So that's the only thing you'd have to switch if you want to go left side or right side of that line. Okay, so that draws that in. You can see here on this one, it actually drew in a parcel. So I shot a bunch of property corners. And since I had that marked as a lot line, it drew in the parcel. It automatically created a parcel, gave me my area, whatever information I wanted in that label style. It stylized it. But it did create this parcel right there. Okay, so you can use it for different things. These can be treated just like a polyline. So if I wanted to select this survey figure. There's edit geometry, there's edit elevations. So if I go to edit geometry, if I wanted to offset this line a few feet over for this back, for the front of walk and then the back of walk, I can simply do this stepped offset. I'm going to say 5 feet to this side. Elevation difference, I can do a grade or just an elevation difference. I'll say go at 2%, something like that. And I could do it again to get that sidewalk in there. I can delete PIs in here. So again, it's just basically a feature line. I can start cleaning that up a little bit if I need to. Maybe I coded something wrong or just didn't read it correctly. I can easily come in here and edit it just like any other line. Horizontal and vertical. So if I have that selected, there's all my elevations on that survey figure. I won't get into a ton of this stuff yet, but if you want those, so right now those are not part of the database. I'm going to come over here and go to figures. I can create or add those figures to this database. So if I want a kind of all-inclusive database of all my figures, all my points, and I'll show you why in a minute, you can create those interactively. So I could go snap to points. I can create them from the object. So I'm going to say create figure from object. I'm going to select this guy, name it, sure. And then this one, sure. So now those two are part of my figures, and I just called it figure. Okay. So no, those are now in that database. I haven't created a surface yet. I will in a moment. But there's a lot there you can do. Same with like this building. This building obviously didn't read my points right. I can come in here, insert a PI, snap to, type it in right. Insert a PI, snap to the node. I can change that figure pretty easily, change a figure out. So in that case, during the building, for whatever reason, it didn't close it properly on that one. Easy things to edit. So if you're familiar with creating and editing feature lines, the survey figures work exactly the same way. But in here, we've got survey queries, we've got figures, and we've got figure groups. So I'm going to create just a couple of groups. This way, it's easy to create your surfaces from, or if you have to use it in design, anybody can access these groups. So I'm going to create a figure group, and I'm just going to do, well, I'm just going to do those break lines for the heck of it here. So those break lines are going to be in my group. I'm just going to call this one, I'll just call it BKL break line. Hit OK. I'm going to go do a new one. Let's call it fences. Maybe I want my fences for a record of survey drawing or something. Let's put my fences in here. That's all my fences. Okay, so very similar to a point group, but it's your lines. And then survey point groups. So we've got all our survey points in here, but I want to create a new point group for my control. This will make more sense soon. And then where's my control? So I'm just going to add those control points in there. Yep. And I'll do that in just a second. It's another way. So this one, and I'll show you why I do this in just a moment. So I'm just going to put my control in there real quick. I could do whatever. Point group's a point group, so you could just keep on going. So those are now in the database. This query here is now everything. So if I wanted to create a point group or break line group that's for my surface only, I can come into this query And I'm just going to call it surface. And I can query by point. I can select any property of that point. So my description contains, what did I do here on this one? We'll just say lip. It'll give them all my lip. Or contains, could be my control points. It could be based on elevation. It could be based on number. Could be a little of everything in there. So what else do I have? I got break lines. And then your figures. So this is a combination of point groups and survey figures. So this, in this case, my thing will be a break line is equal to true or false. So it's going to notice all the break lines that I brought in, and it's going to automatically add them to this query. It could be description or a name contains lip, whatever you wanted to build those queries out of. And again, this is kind of all encompassing, and we can use this in a surface pretty easily with just a couple of clicks. I'm going to try to give some more room here. So if I preview this in drawing, you can kind of see that it highlighted everything that's within that. It's highlighted blue. Maybe hard to see up there, but anything that's within that query, it's highlighted. So if I'm missing something, I can continue to build on this query and give it some more figures, like maybe description contains back a walk or something like that. Or sidewalk, whatever I called it. I can't remember what I called it. Okay. I can save that query. I can save this file, so very similar to a template. If you use the same naming conventions, you can save this file out and you can import it in, and it automatically builds your query for you. I'm going to close that out. And then I'll get into point groups in a minute. No, I'll do point groups right now. Two ways of handling the points. You can either do description key sets. So description key sets, if I go to edit keys here, it will take your code and it will put in your markers for you. So if you wanted your fire hydrants to come in looking like a fire hydrant, a street light, if you wanted it to label existing fire hydrant, existing street light, this will be automated. So once you set this up, you can have it bring in all that information that you want. I tend to use, I got survey, I got manholes in here, I think. Yep. I tend to use point groups over description keys. I think they're easier to handle. So in my template, I would typically have a list of 40 or 50 point groups. I'll just do a couple real quick. Maybe I want these to have the sewer manhole symbol plus maybe a different label there. So I can create a point group, and I'm just going to call it sewer. My point style is going to be the sewer manhole. My point label style, it could be whatever my description is. It could be something I customize that says existing sewer manhole. And then I can include whatever points I want with just a description here, sanitary sewer manhole. Yeah. Let's see, do I have street lights? Did a few things. I'll just do the one. It's the same thing, point groups. But in this case, the point group is just that symbol, that label. It could have my rim elevation on there. If I wanted to say rim equals the point elevation, it could have maybe a measure down. Whatever you want it to say is what you can have there. And that point group here, I use point groups to display things. I use point groups just like for topo only. I use them for my utilities. There's a hierarchy to the point groups. So if on my all points, I have this stuff set to maybe no display. If I move that all points to the top, things won't be displayed. So if I wanted to just show my sewer, in your point group properties on the information tab, if you just change these styles to none, then it's set to no display. If you're connecting the dots, instead of running it through the survey database, you could have a point group that would be like, your edge of asphalt or something, and just includes the points that are those points. So it's a quick way, I think, to just turn. Whoa, that's a lot of stuff there. Yeah. We'll just fix my style there, a little better there. So if you were just connecting dots and you were drawing in that line work, if you wanted to just isolate one set of points, the point groups is a really easy way to isolate that. And then again, if I wanted to not show anything for some reason, I just use that all points point group as a no display. Okay, so and then when I go to build my surface, this makes it a little bit easier. So I can have this automated. I didn't just for today, but you could have your point group added in here, your point survey queries, your figure queries. That could automatically be in your template so that when you brought everything in, it drew the line work, it stylized it, it put the points how you want them, and it builds your surface for you. All you have to do is kind of pre-build this a little bit. And I'm just going to hit OK here. Ignore that it grabbed my control. This topo point group. There. And then same thing with these break lines. I could add it to my surface, my figure survey query. There's that surface query that I created that has all the break lines, all the point groups, whatever I wanted in this surface. So you don't have to go add things 10 different times. You can simply just build that query out, hit OK, and it will add in those break lines to that surface. I can exclude the buildings. I can exclude anything at this point. But I quickly added it in there without really a whole lot of effort. You want to do some cleanup, obviously, but probably want to figure out why it's going out there. But within a few minutes, you could quickly build that surface. You could quickly build those figure lines, and you have that available. Now, the reason I use it, probably more so, is when you bring in, whoops, let's start an actual file. You guys, that never happens, does it? I don't know why that crashed. Blame it on Brandon. Anyway, while that is reopening, the reason I do it is I use a lot of these survey figures in my design. So if I'm doing a road design or some grading of pads or whatever, I don't want to have to go and re-import that data or bring in those point groups, weed through them all and do that all again for every single drawing. With the survey database, any user can access that has access to it if you allow them. But this is just a blank drawing. So any user can go in there, access the database, and let's just say they want the edge of asphalt or they want my control. They can just right click, insert it into this drawing or any drawing, and then they have that control in there without having to go weed through point files or copy and paste or anything. They can simply just access what you've set up in this database and bring that in. And same with figures. So if I wanted, maybe I wanted my fences in here, insert it into the drawing. There's my fences. Okay. And obviously this would probably be able, you'd see 10 or 15 different figure groups in there, but whatever I wanted in my other drawings, same with the lip, if I just wanted one specific line, you can kind of see it shows me what's about to be brought in. I can just insert that into the drawing. Okay. And then it's a survey figure. I can grade from it. I can do a bunch of stuff in there. So that's kind of how I use and why I use those queries in here. Obviously, you don't have to. You can insert points, draw them all, do whatever you want there. But I thought I'd touch base a little bit on that survey database. They've been around a while, maybe not used to the full extent, but there's some different uses in there that I kind of like. So, questions on that? And this data, this actually came, I just extracted a bunch of points from a drone model. But it could be, obviously, your field work, could be from the drone data, could be whatever you want. And then the parcels, again, if I wanted to throw the parcels in there, and we'll talk a little bit more about GIS data, but there's two ways to bring in GIS data. The first way, I'm just going to quickly drop it in here. Check my coordinate system first. Okay. Map import is one way to bring it in. So that'll simply just go out there and grab your data and bring it in as line work. So I'm going to go map import. I'm going to go to my shape files here for Day Ranch. This is the entire Salt Lake County, so I probably want to narrow it down. It's going to put on whatever layer you want. It defaults to the layer of the shapefile name, but I could put it on, GIS bead. I could create a layer right there. The data is in UTM zone 12. It's going to translate to, I have central zone, MAT 83. If you want the data or the attributes on it, even though it's bringing it in as a line work, if you select data here, create object data, I'm going to leave all the fields, but it's going to bring in all that information, all those attributes from your shapefile. Hit OK here, import polygons as close polylines. If I have no filter going, it's going to bring the whole county in. I could do current display, or I could define a window. I'll define a window here and just bring in whatever in this area. Give it a second. Should be a lot quicker. The other way, while this is going, so that was map import. The other way, if you type in map W space, that gets you to your task pane. I'll get into that in just a second. Those parcels came in, just a polyline, but if I look at the properties of that polyline, it has all the data and all the attributes from it. So there's my parcel ID, all that information. So any attribute in that shapefile is now associated with that line, and even though it's just an AutoCAD polyline. So there's that way. And then there's the task pane, so map W space. I'll do a couple more things in there. That brings that task pane up. You can connect through there, or you can simply just grab that shapefile, drag it on your model space, and give it a moment. It's going to be that. This connects to your shapefile. So this is a connection to the database of that shapefile. So let me zoom back to where I was. And it brought in the entire county. That's now in my task pane. And if I look at it, and let's edit style first. I can theme it. So if let's say this was soils or wetlands or something, I could theme it based on the soil type, the wetland type. I'll do a theme probably when we do some utilities. But for simple use, I can change my line work. I can change that hatch pattern in the middle. I can remove it. I can change colors. I can give it a transparency. I can label it. So if I wanted it to show, in this case, let's show, just show the parcel ID. Parcel ID. Maybe I want it green. Apply, close it. Okay, so a little bit more deeper look into that data. We can filter it down. I don't need the entire county, so we could come in here to my task pane, right click, query to filter it, and I can filter it based on a million different things. So if I wanted to filter it based on property size, if I have a client looking for something in zone A that's 5 acres minimum, that's within this area, you could filter it down pretty easily by using this query here. I'm going to do a simple one just by going location on a map. I just really want to see it. So I want to inside maybe this rectangle here. And that filters it down. If I was doing a concept plan or something, someone wants a concept plan, you can grab that data. This is map data. This is live connection. You can check it out. You can explode it if you really want, and then it's back down to that line work. So if you wanted to use those shape files for maps, for utilities, for parcels, whatever it is, super easy ways to bring those in. And again, either way, map import or map W space. So map W space is a task pane.
That's part of the line, you have all the object data. All the property now, it's for all the property.
Oh, this one I just exploded? I don't think so, but let's double check it. No, it loses that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Any more questions on that so far? Anything? I'm going to jump into recap. Close this drawing. It's going to ask you if you do that live connection, if you check it in, it's going to remove that parcel from the database. So I tend to don't check in features. That way I don't screw up the shape file. So just gonna say no. Recap. There's some new stuff in recap. So I'm going to look at recap in general. Does recap. Then I'm going to look at the cloud-based model viewer to extract some stuff. I left this little annoying prompt up here, but there's a couple things now with recap. It does some, says manual, but it's actually automatic. It does a reclassification of your data. So usually, whether it's LiDAR, whether it's drone data, at least have some sort of classification with it. Usually not 100% correct. Recap does a really good job of weeding out anything that's non-ground points. That's the new 2024 engine. It works great. It also eliminates points that it doesn't need. Like you don't need 10 million points for a 2-acre topo. And you may like it, but do you really need it? So it does do some decimation of those points. And it's a little bit quicker. So I'm going to do a new project here. So you go new project, import point cloud. And throw this on my desktop. And this can be pretty much any file format. I'm just going to drop on an LAS file. You have to convert it. If you want this point cloud in any Autodesk product, you have to convert it from whatever it is to a recap file. So I'm just going to drop it on there. I'm going to hit import file. And I'm going to give it a moment here. If this was scan data that needs to be registered or stitched together, this will go through and kind of does a first pass of automated registration. If this is a fairly small flight, so it's one LAS, but if it had 10 different tiles LAS files, you just drop all 10 on there and it's going to stitch them all together. So if you have a large project and you've got different areas and you want one surface, it's easy. You just throw it into recap like I just did. And then we'll also bring it into civil in just a moment. And while that's going, I'm going to queue up the next thing here. If you have the AEC collection, you get Autodesk Docs. Okay? And in Autodesk Docs, there's a couple things here. There's a desktop connector, and you get unlimited storage. So there's a desktop connector. So there's two things with Docs. There's Civil 3D, there's desktop connector, and then there's the cloud stuff that I'm going to show you. And then when you install Docs and the desktop connector, you get this folder here under Autodesk Docs, ACC, Autodesk Construction Cloud, where you can just drag and drop your projects in. So for this one, I just dropped in my recap file. So here's that Day Ranch one. I just pre-did it. All I did was drop in my recap file, a few other ones in there. The desktop connector pushes it to the cloud. So if you're using docs, this is a whole different conversation, but you're working on the cloud, but it's copying Delta's local. It's actually a really good way. But for this case, all I did was drag my stuff into this folder and it automatically syncs to the cloud. You log into docs, so I'm just going to log into my BIM 360.
You've been doing aerial stuff with recap and it's what you do.
I have, yeah. Although, does anyone use Pix4D survey? Do you like it? I'm exploring it right now. Okay. So I use SiteScan, Esri SiteScan, and I have for years before it was Esri. But I've been exploring Pix4D and Pix4D survey. So, but yeah, right now I use SiteScan and Recap. Okay, so that stuff will sync to the cloud. You're going to see your projects in the cloud. I'm trying to kill a minute while that still imports. It's unlimited, so it doesn't matter the size of your point cloud, doesn't matter the size of your projects. It's unlimited everything. And if you want more on docs, because it's actually a great, if anyone uses Bluebeam or any PDF editors, there's actually a built-in PDF redline tool. It's actually pretty slick. But this is called the Autodesk Large Model Viewer. So I'm going to bring up that same point cloud that I'm importing now at some point. Wi-Fi slow. We'll blame it on the Wi-Fi. All right. In here, I'm going to bring up this road rehab project. It's taken forever on that point cloud. Close. There we go. Um, if you even just wanted a client viewer, this is free to most as far as a viewer goes. You can share this out. So if a client wanted to see your point cloud or something, you can share this viewer out with them. This one, I'm just going to show some extract features in a moment. May have to do it before this is done importing. This will allow you to extract features. So feature lines or figure lines and points. So in here, down here at the bottom, we've got feature extraction. I'm going to select that. You can set up a feature template. So you could back a curve, edge of gutter, center line, paint lines, whatever you want to extract, you can set it up in a template here. So for your lines, I got top of curve, and then on default, it's just tags, but you could say center line or whatever you want to do it. You could feature code that. So if you wanted to run it through Civil 3D, you could have it read the feature code. Same with the points. There's going to be should be a bunch of points pop up here. Yeah. Yep. On this one, I just did the points. I didn't do any features on that one that I used earlier, but I could have done the features. So, and you'll see what it does when I do the features. So, but you could do things like fire hydrants in here. Feature code could be fire hydrant. That way, when it comes into civil, it's got the right symbols. This would have a huge list. I don't know what I did with it. I might have exported it out. But what I really want to show is this. So once I do the feature extraction, I tell it what direction I want to extract. So I want to point it kind of downstream. And this shows me a cross section of that point cloud. And then if I just simply move these points here, so I'm going to go top of that. Maybe I want every single point in here. Maybe I want whatever this, I don't know where center line is, but you can kind of see it's drawn on the screen. So I could find my center line if I really wanted to. I can add in more. So if I needed a break line here as well, I can add that break line in. I'll do one more, add that break line in here. So those are all the feature lines that it's going to extract. Once I have that set up, I could do the entire road. If I wanted to, I could do the entire cross section. Once I have that, zoom out a little bit. And if I hit start auto extraction, it's going to go every 10 feet or whatever I put it in this settings here. And it's going to start extracting those lines. It does a pretty good job. So when it hits something that it can't, it'll say stop, or do you want to ignore it? Because there's a threshold setting. I'm afraid if I hit that, I'll stop it. So we'll give it a minute. But I could have extracted, I could have put this on the paint line and extracted the paint line if I wanted to. And maybe that would have looked better, but it's doing a pretty good job going in there and extracting this barrier right here, this median. It does struggle a little bit more with drone data because drone data is not as clean as LiDAR. This was a mobile LiDAR, but it does still a good job on the drone data. This sometimes you have to up your threshold a little bit. Why that's still going, I don't know. It's a good thing I didn't. This is in, it is, it's in Autodesk Dock. So if you have just Civil 3D, you don't have it. If you have the AEC collection, then you have it. Unlimited storage. This tool is in there. A million other tools that we won't get into are in there. This is probably extracted enough. When you're done, you can just hit done. And there's some line work for us. The points, I'm just going to do a couple points real quick. I'm just going to do a fire hydrant, and I'm not going to even go search for a fire hydrant, but let's just say there's a fire hydrant right there. You can see the point cloud in this viewer. So if I had to say maybe this is the fire hydrant, I could put fire hydrant on center wherever I wanted to. So imagine a fire hydrant there. Maybe not there. Maybe imagine it off the road. I'm just going to do the 1 point because a point's a point, but you can go in there and you can start picking all your points for any of your features that you want in civil. So it's a nice little viewer. It's got the cross-section view. It's got the main view. It's got the feature extraction, or simply it's got the viewer. If you just use it for a viewer, just to look at it or show client, that works great. But then what do you do from here? There's export options. So here's all my linear features, my points. I can export these out. Exports out as a DXF or an XML. Either way, I'm going to go XML on this one and hit export. Hit export there. Okay. That exports out in XML. You can bring it into Civil. I'm just going to start a blank drawing. Yeah. If you guys want a 2-year-old laptop, it's a great laptop. So this will extract and export out all these as different coded feature lines. So it's actually pretty clean. It actually did a good job. When my Civil decides to come back, Any question on this before I close it out? Just wanted to show that real quick. That's fairly new, and it actually does a good job of extracting those. Yeah. Currently, I've been testing some recap stuff, which I think would be a good spot for it. No, there's nothing to extract in recap. That's where it should be. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna kill my civil. One sec.
Classification, the only way to break those up, like sure, you know, we one big classification, the only way to pull segment out in classification, rather than
Yeah, yeah. I'll when I do that, I'll show you. Okay, let me import that XML real quick. I'm not gonna do anything with it. I just want to import it. Import XML. Just leaving all the defaults, but that's that thing I just extracted. There's those feature lines. I think I did them two separate ones, so let me quickly import the other one. Yeah. Where'd my point go? My point's somewhere here. Yeah, there's my point. So that's that point that it could be a fire hydrant. So it's just a survey point. But then here's all the break lines and uh, created the feature lines coming out of civil. So if I wanted to build a surface from those, I'm just a couple steps away from building that surface. Yeah. All right, so it does a good job extracting it. I actually really like that tool. I do think it's going to be in recap eventually. So that imported in recap. Just going to launch the project here. And there's that model, that same one. Pretty solid model. I could bring this right into civil, build a surface from it. But now in recap, if I turn on my classifications, this just is straight out of the software classification. You can see it does a decent first pass at identifying things like vegetation, buildings. Um, I could come here to my classifications and I can just turn off the buildings. I can remove the buildings if I wanted to. Same thing with the vegetation. I can turn those off, or I can delete them and get rid of them out of the point cloud. Or if it didn't quite do its job 100%, and let's say for no real reason, this, yeah, and so you can window it. So I would probably be a little bit more accurate, but I'll just quickly do this. Anything you select, so I selected those points for that house, you can add it to a region, or you can create a new classification for it. So if you wanted to classify it, I'm just going to pick a color way down here. Assign it to that classification. It's assigned that classification. If it misclassified something, like I'm pretty sure this part right there is not vegetation, it's part of the house. Same thing, you could just window that area and add it to either the classification, or you could create a region even, which is basically a layer. So either way, you can turn it into that classification. So
I noticed that classified intensive vegetation. Well, see, they're slightly different color.
yeah, it's like a lighter green versus a darker green. Not a very good way. Just by window, you could get in there and window it, but it would be not by color, but it'd be by classification. So if that was a different vegetation, you could but you can see the tramp there is also the same thing. So there's not an easy way aside from selecting it manually with a window. But there is this new classification tool, automatic ground classification. Let's save the project. What it does is it goes in and does a really good job. And there's a couple settings here. I'm just going to go optimum. It goes in there and it's going to create two classifications, one that's ground and one that is everything else. That way, when you build your surface, you're building your surface in civil of just the ground shots only. So we'll take just a second here. Get rid of this stuff. And that doesn't take too long. This isn't a massive file. This one actually, there's a ton of points in there, but it's not a big area. There's also a classification in InfraWorks. We won't get into that, but if you want to look at it, I can just come over to the booth. It does a little bit more classification, but that they put that in there before this one, and I actually really like this one. I think it does a good job. So I'm gonna let this keep running. It might take another few minutes. You probably don't want to sit there and wait. I'm going to bring in another point cloud though, and we're going to create a surface while that's classifying. So back in Civil, Insert tab, Attach point cloud. This again can be any point cloud. I'm going to go to a simple pile. Just hit OK. You'll get this if your hardware accelerator is turned off, which mine always is turned off until I need a point cloud in, and I just turn it back on. So it just takes a split second to bring in a point cloud of any size. Civil actually handles a point cloud really well. So there's this point cloud. Yeah, this one's probably a few years old. Those piles no longer exist. But there's that point cloud, right? That's a pretty detailed. What's that?
One big one.
Yeah. There's one big bomb ready to explode. Okay. So the point cloud can come in, you can view it, you can view the classifications. As soon as this other one is done, I'll show you in Civil. But if you wanted to create a surface in Civil just based off a recap point cloud, let me go back to the top view. You could whittle this down and kind of narrow it. So maybe I just want this pile. So I could crop this down. Let's maybe just view this pile. We want to get a volume or something on it. So, doesn't delete anything. It just narrowed it down to that one area. I can go create surface from point cloud. In here, I'm just going to name it. I'm just going to call it EG. We'll give it a style. And hit next. This window here is our point cloud. So right now there's 1.5 million points in there, and they're 0.01 feet apart. Again, probably not necessary. You may not need that. Let's just give it like a foot apart. That goes down to 400,000 points. Maybe you want to go 2 feet apart or something, whatever it is that you want. Starts narrowing that down. You don't need all those points in there. I'll keep it at 2.5. Still going to be 80,000 points. I'm not going to filter it. We already filtered it previously. Create the surface. Okay. Even on a massive surface, this might take a minute, but it's pretty quick in building that. You can still work, do whatever you want. There, it built that surface. I can get rid of my point cloud now if I wanted to, detach it or unload it. And there's that surface from the point cloud.
Where is that? So,
Yeah, so let me reload. If you select your point cloud, where that point cloud is, right up here, create surface from point cloud. Let's see. If you wanted to, I'm going to isolate this object, which is my point cloud. I'm going to view it a little bit. If I wanted to draw brake lines in here, I can easily come in here, feature line, create a feature line. Give it a site, I'm just going to leave it basic. I change the color so you can see it though. So if you choose to maybe extract or draw your brake lines, whether it's a road, whether it's a simple pile, whatever it is, you can do that in Civil 3D. And in your OSNAP settings, there is 3D object snap. So you can turn on your 3D snap. You can snap to a node. That way, anywhere I pick on this, you can kind of see. Maybe you can't, but I can. There's a blue thing there that pops up that's going to snap to the point cloud. And it's going to pick up the elevation. So you can see there in my command line. So if you really wanted to kind of quickly go in there, draw the toe of that or any brake line, you can just walk around that point cloud. I'm going to do a quick, ugly job on that, and this works great if that was curb and gutter, if this is for a site or pile or whatever it is, you can snap to that. I'm just going to keep snapping. So if I wanted a quick calc on what the volume is, bring that in, create a surface. So there's the toe of that line. So some super easy ways to use that data. I don't need that point cloud anymore. Like I said, I can just detach it. I still get my surface. It doesn't delete any points from your surface. So once you're done with that point cloud, I'd remove it. That's still going. And then if you wanted a volume, you guys probably create surface volumes at times. I'll just create a surface from my toe of that slope. I don't even need to see it. And this feature line goes in that toe. And then we could do a volume surface. So really quick, I can count those piles. I can analyze the pile. I can create a volume surface real fast. Just say volume. My toe over my existing ground. Something like that. So fairly quick, bring that point cloud in. I drew that toe and I got close enough. And I can see the volume of that pile. So you can use those recap models fairly easily in Civil 3D or extract that in some of the other products. Any questions on that? Okay.
What is it? What did you set up for the thing?
I didn't even set anything up. It was just a default. Yeah. But in that, what Kent was asking is, right. Yeah. I just used that style, so it came in on default. But if I was to, yeah, I can change that in here. Yeah. Yep. Until you run the analysis and clean it up, it just goes default. But anyway, quick way to get volumes even on something as simple as a pile. Probably a 20-minute flight. I built Kent $3,000. Good. So close to being done. Trying to BS my way through this classification thing. Good.
So sometimes you find it. Very old background.
Okay.
I'm set up that these data important. My point that I bring off.
Yeah,
What is that?
that's just your survey accuracy versus Bing Maps rough estimated location. You can adjust it though if you wanted to. You could move that entire Bing Map image a couple of feet.
Settings.
You do that. Let's see, where am I at here? I'm going to close this file. While that's getting done, let me do that real quick for you. Actually, let me just open a file. Let's go with this one. So let's turn this on. You do it here. You can edit the location from the map. So let's see if I can find something close here. You can edit that location from the map. I'm going to go somewhere way off because I can't remember the address of that file I just opened up. But let's just say this was Nephi. It's not. Let's just say it is. I love that town. You place it wherever you want. So if you had like a point on a curb and gutter or a point on a building, you just zoom in here. You put this where you want it. You hit next. You hit next again. You find that spot on your map. So I'm just going to pick a random spot here. Let's just say that's the spot. Again, it's not, but what it is today.
Why don't we put that like that?
What's that? I did do north. Yeah, to rotate it. But there it just moved the map to that exact point. So if it is off a few feet, you can still shift that map. So that was a horrible example, but it showed you that you can move that map. Yeah. Yep. You can't rotate it though. You can't rotate that map, but you can definitely shift X and Y to get it a little bit closer. And then as far as the last thing I'll do here on this, capture that area. You have very little control over the map, but if you wanted a little bit better, there's different resolutions, a little bit better. And then you can adjust things like contrast and fade. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Good. Still at 94%.
Classification on that.
Yeah.
That's the two areas. This two classifications ground and the other one classified very like civil. Just say the classification. The ground picks up still some shrubbery. I get it.
Then you select that shrub, the shrubs, and you put it in the non-ground classification. You'd have to manually do it at that point.
What will the whole?
Your surface should be able to tin across through that, but you may have holes or flat spots. But yeah. Okay. While that's still classifying, I'm going to move on to a couple other things real quick that I had jotted down. The large surfaces, those are increasingly becoming more and more annoying. If I had something from the state, a big DEM file or something, or a drone flight that's usually a million vertices and just a lot of data, it's going to bog your machine down. It does that. Maybe not the machine as much as the file itself as you maybe hover over. I think you guys have probably all seen that. As you hover over something, it freezes up for a second. There's a couple ways to get rid of that data. I'm going to do two ways. I'm going to do a data clip, and then I'm going to do this GIS way that I really like, especially for big sites. So I'm going to open up this file. These are contours, so DXF coming from a drone flight. These are just polylines elevated. Okay. Before I create my surface from that, I want to use this boundary, or I want to use any boundary, really. I could be this rectangle that I just want my surface maybe to be here. Before I create my surface, or before I add the data to my surface, so I'm going to go create it. I'm going to just call it EG. I'll just leave the contours 1 and 5. But before I do anything, I want to come in and add a boundary. But I don't want to just add a normal boundary that we're used to, right? A lot of us do an outer or a hide. I want to use this data clip, because if we have a surface this big and we do a boundary that shows just this much, this big of a surface is still in there. It's still in your file. It still creates that annoying MMS thing that you may get. But a data clip is going to get rid of everything outside that. So I'm going to go data clip. I'm going to hit OK, which is kind of weird, right? Like I add a boundary to a surface that doesn't really exist. But it's there. That's the first step in doing that. And then when I add these in there, so I'm just going to do a select similar. Let me select my surface also. Now when I go and add these contours in to build my surface, this could be contours, this could be DEM, this could be anything. It just built what's within that data clip. Okay, so I don't have this massive surface that I don't need out here. My file size is smaller, my surface is smaller. I can avoid that dreaded MMS file that you create a lot. And now it's just that area of the surface. Super simple. Just one of those things that you don't really notice most of the time because it's just a little bit different workflow. But I promise you, it will save you a ton of time and headache in there. And then in your surface itself, if I go to surface properties, on the definition tab, there's this build and this copy deleted dependent objects. Because I no longer need all this crap out here. I no longer need those polylines that I used. But if I delete them, my surface is going to be gone unless I change this no to yes. Once I do that, just rebuild it. I can now get rid of these. I'm just going to select similar and delete them. And my surface will stay there. I copied that data in that it needed and only for this clipped area because AutoCAD hates those contours. It hates those millions of vertices along the contour. It just doesn't like it. But now I've got my surface in there, cropped down to my area I need, and I don't have those annoying polylines in there. So that's how I would address at least one option of addressing the large surface problem that we run into. And it's pretty straightforward. The other way, I'm going to stay in this file, but let's say I only need this area. Bring a DEM file in, I only need that area. I built the entire thing, or this is a certain phase. There is, let me save my file first. There's a cropped surface here. So under surface, create cropped surface. Surface to crop, that's my existing ground. Select the crop area. I'm just going to select I can just window it. I can go polygon, so I'm going to do this white line. I'm going to do this object. Pick a point inside, so it's really just anywhere inside that line. Specify an existing drawing, so if I want to push this surface to an existing drawing, I can find that drawing. I can create a new drawing. I can select an open drawing. I'm just going to do new drawing. Create a new drawing. Let's throw it on. Well, let's open this template. I can call it whatever I want. I'm just going to leave it default. I'm going to hit OK. So in that new drawing it created, it's just that part of the surface. I don't know why I use that style. but it's just that smaller section of that surface. And that's it. Okay. So that's a crop surface. That's a separate surface. It's not like linked or XREF or data shortcutted. It's a separate surface, but a super quick way of getting just that small area you want into a clean drawing. Now the fourth whatever, I lose track easily. I'm going to go a GIS route. And this is for if you have a really big surface, a big area, you're doing massive watersheds or something. In here, I've got this surface. I'll turn it on real quick so you can see this surface. So it is a surface. Beautiful. Leaving the surface in here. And this is if you use data shortcuts, which if you're doing more than just a surface file or a survey file, if it's going on to design, I would go data shortcut. It's another conversation. You can export out your surface as a DEM. So you can just right click on your surface, export to DEM, DEM file name. Again, I'm just going to throw it on my desktop. Grid spacing. So again, we've got millions and millions of points. Every 1 foot, do you really need it? We can simplify that. Let's say maybe every 5 feet. And that's it. That's your export of that. So I'm going to hit OK to export that out. Ignore that warning there. Imagine it worked. Okay. That'll export out a DEM file. Now back to the MapW space that we did earlier. Here, I'm going to connect to that same DEM file. So if I don't want to display any civil contours because GIS data just works better, I'm going to connect to that shape file, or excuse me, that DEM file. Same thing if you get something from the state, this works great. Where did I save that to? This one here. You can export a TIFF or a DEM, either way, it's the same file. I'm going to connect to it. I'm going to add it to map. This also works really well if you have multiple tiles, which when you download stuff from the state or county or whatever, you typically get several tiles for that surface data. This is about to combine it all. So you would see a list here, you just say add to map. I'm going to go add to map. Okay. That adds that DEM in there. You can see it's stylized this way. I'm going to change that in just a second. And it's now in your task pane. You right click, create a contour layer. You can create that contour layer any way you want. I'm going to go feet, contour interval, 1 foot, majors every 5 feet. Maybe I wanted to label the elevation. This exports out an SDF, which is just an Autodesk file. Throw that on my desktop somewhere. I'm going to hit OK. Okay. So I'm going to turn that off. Now I've got that contour layer in there, which in your sheets and in your files, it acts like nothing is there. Anytime you use GIS data, it's just, especially through the task pane, it acts like nothing is there. You can stylize it however you want. So if I right click here, edit style, my majors, maybe I want my majors to be yellow. Maybe you want them dashed, whatever I wanted to change in there. Close that out. You can see that text. That text is dynamic going with it. But it is a GIS layer. However, since I have my surface in there, just not shown, or data shortcutted, just no display, it's not taxing the graphics on anything. Any file is not making it larger. But if I draw a polyline here, just to show you that the surface really is in there, whatever style that is, okay, that surface really is there. I can still use that. I can still label that surface. I can do anything I want to that surface. It's just not visually being shown, which is part of the problem with large surfaces, is it taxes your computer, taxes the graphics. It's in all your sheets, just PDFs are bigger. The GIS route is a really good display. It's usually a cleaner looking contour too than kind of sometimes you get super jagged.
Basically. Image.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less. So the data's still there, so I can use the surface, profiles, labels, whatever you want, but it's just not visually showing up, and it's using this as a visual instead of the surface and all those contours as a visual. Yeah, more or less it's just an overlay. And then again, if you go into any other file, if you just need to visually see it, instead of importing your surface into those files, which again is going to bloat things, you can just toss in your GIS data. So those are the three ways. There was the, what did I do first? There was the data clip, there was the cropped surface, and then there was this GIS route. That's kind of how I handle these large surface problems. So a lot of it depends on the size, but it actually works out really well. So any questions on that? Should we check recap? Stupid recap. I know it's hung up on that 94. Just trust me, it works. I've probably been saying that for like 15 years, right? You guys are used to that. Let's see, a couple other things I wanted to go over. I'm gonna do a blank file again. GIS data, again, we've touched base on that, but since it is becoming more and more important, I downloaded Spanish Forks, some shape files from them. I'm just going to search this SHP. Here, I'm going to do this a different way. Let's just bring our sewer in, just for time's sake. So again, I could do the map import, but I'm just going to drag and drop all of these shape files in. And this is the Spanish Fork, all of it. If I look at my task pane, all those layers are here. We kind of looked at styling them. We looked at kind of cropping it down to a certain area. We could do that as a whole. So if I wanted to just query this entire area, crop it down to, let's just pick something here. Just to make that a little bit usable. But in here, so this is the sewer. We got laterals, we got all that stuff. Maybe this is pre-survey, so you can just quickly throw together some maps. But in here, especially for the mains, I'm gonna go to edit style. There's this theme option. So right now it's all basically one style, one theme. I can go new theme, and I can theme it based on a property. So if I wanted to theme this based on diameter, just to see where all the sizes of sewer is here, and go equal. Let's do a different style range, maybe yellow to red, I don't know. Line thickness, we'll make the line thicker. Text label, I don't care. We're just gonna hit OK. And OK. So that broke out all the sizes for those sewer lines. So I can come in here and look at the different sizes. The thicker ones are the 15-inch. So you can quickly throw that GIS data in there and know whatever properties, whatever analysis you wanted to do of that system.
Using already.
Yep, I'm working with them directly in Civil 3D. Yep. Just drag and drop them in there. Now you're connected, whatever you want to see here. So you can make, I mean, I've got water, we've got PI, we've got storm drain. Within a few minutes, you could really have a lot of information there. Maybe that's prior to survey or whatever you're looking for, but there's the entire water system. If I want to get crazy, then I drop in Utah County parcels. So pretty quick to start working with that data. Yeah, most of what I do is in Central, so I just set it in Central on default, and then switch it from there. Yeah, but yeah, it's a good question. You want to have your coordinate zone set because it's going to reproject wherever this data is. If it's not in the right place, it's going to reproject. So, but pretty quick, you can start working with massive amounts of data. Same thing on these parcels. If I wanted to see, I don't know if these parcels have zones. Can't remember. But if I wanted to see acreage, every parcel between what's left in Spanish Fork between 5 and 50 acres. No, that's going to be 7,000 individual values. Let's just do this. Okay, so now it shows everything in Spanish Fork between 5 and 50 acres. I can start narrowing down my search or something. Any questions on that GIS data? I could go GIS all day, but it's just actually more and more relevant to what we're doing. Most projects, I start with GIS, I end with GIS. There's some additional GIS stuff from Autodesk. If you do have ArcGIS Online or a GIS department, this ties directly to that stuff. I'm not going to do that today because that's 2 hours in itself. But this simple form of working with a lot of large data really quick. State data. That's something that comes up quite a bit. So I've kind of tried to queue up some stuff that you guys ask a lot. Does anyone ever run into this IMG file type? You download it, it comes up all the time. I use a product called QGIS. It's free, which is why I use it, and it actually works really well. I use it for saving down my images. Some drone images, state images get quite large. QGIS will export those out to a different resolution in seconds. Also, an IMG file cannot be imported into Civil 3D. So
That's free software, and it'll come down.
yeah, and I'll do one real quick. Still at 4%. Where's my QGIS? 100% sure I started it. Yeah, you just Google QGIS desktop, it pops up. It's free. There's a lot that you can do there. There's only 2 things I actually do there, but for the images, let's go quickly on this one here. So this image is 3 gig. This is a pretty big image. That's going to hurt your Civil 3D probably. All you've got to do here on the image is right click, export, save as, and let's throw it in here. Just gonna name it my name. So right now the resolution is 0.07 by 0.07. So it's just for time's sake, I'm gonna say 0.5, 0.5. You can reproject if you need to. This one I'm not going to, but you can set a different coordinate system if you want to reproject that image. Just gonna hit OK. So from 3 gig down to, we're about to find out. And I bet if I tried that 3 gig to bring it into Civil, it would probably say image invalid. But we went down to 240 meg, and we're not really losing much in resolution. So for that alone, that's worth it. For the other thing that I wanted to show,
The last file, please.
yeah, will it?
File.
LAS or LAZ? Z. Let's try. I've never done to LAZ, but there's a lot of formats here. It's possibly on that list. I don't know if I read them all. We can explore that. There's a lot of stuff it can go to, so I was hoping it would just pop out at me, but it didn't. All right, I'm gonna get rid of this. So again, I can now delete that 3 gig image because I'll never use it. I don't need it. But these IMG files, these are ones that are surface files, but they can't be brought into Civil 3D. So I'm going to drag the 4 over to QGIS. Okay, so there's the surface. And then I can do one at a time. I can combine them. Either way, I'm just going to, for time's sake, going to export one out. But I can turn this into any file type. GeoTIFF, that's going to be brought in as a DEM into Civil 3D. There's GRD files, so there's a bunch of files in here if you need to convert that to a different data type. I'm just going to go to a GeoTIFF. Raw data, it's in zone 12. I'm going to remember that because I'm going to bring this into Civil. I'm going to leave resolution the same. Really, I'm just using this to convert it. Cluttering up my desktop, but that's all right. Sean. Okay. So that created that as a file that's now usable to Civil 3D. If I come to my tool space, and if I create a surface, definition, this is how you bring in DEM files of any kind. And this, the one I just did. So DEM, desktop. There's that one I just created. I'm going to hit OK here. So went from the IMG file, or I went from a DEM of any kind or whatever it is to the TIFF. When bringing in this data, something that everyone seems to always forget is you have to tell it what your DEM coordinate zone is. That tells you up here, but for whatever reason, Civil 3D doesn't read it. So I get a lot of questions like, this is bringing it in the wrong spot, or it's in meters still. What's going on? It's typically because we didn't set this spot right here. And all you got to do is find the right zone. Zone 12. It's most likely in metric. We're just going to hope and pray. I think I got the right one. Now it's going to convert it from that zone 12 down to my central zone. I'm going to just hit OK. That's bringing that in. So any file type, any DEM, any ASCII file, whatever you need to bring a surface into Civil 3D, go that route. Right click on your surface definition, import it in through there. Even if it's multiple tiles, because multiple tiles will merge. And then if you want to do the data clip, you go the data clip route, whatever it takes to kind of get that down to manageable size. Guys, I was hoping that would be done by the time we were done. I promise that that file, because I did this last week on that same file, took like 20 minutes max. So, doesn't like when I'm live. Okay, so that one's being brought in. It should just take a second. Any other questions just in general? Does anyone want? I know we got like 10 minutes left. There's a lot of cool stuff with subassembly composer if you're doing stakeouts. You want to do like offsets. I can't remember if I did that last year, but converting PDF to CAD. Project Explorer is a program that's now built onto Civil 3D. So if you want to really inspect your models, your survey data, your parcels, whatever it is, there's something called Project Explorer. KMZ files through that map import command come right in. So if you work with a lot of Google Earth stuff, KMZ files will work great. So there's that surface for what that's worth. To the correct location, to the correct elevation. converted from that IMG file using that freeware QGIS. So I like free stuff. QGIS has worked great for years. But I get that question a lot. Really, it's how do I import DEM files? Right there is the best way. Uh, what else? What else are you guys running into that you want to see more of, whether that's today or another day? But
For the production now, school.
it's still the exact same way. Nope. Nope. Um, 2025 is supposed to be coming out with new coordinate systems and a new way of doing it. They've tried to clean that up. I honestly haven't seen anything better, but it's also not finalized yet. So it's possible. I know they are working on it though. Yeah.
But I'll ask civil. Or
I think that's this year. I think that's 25. So I know it's been a big discussion. Um, it's Autodesk. So what's in the beta, what stuff we're testing now sometimes doesn't make it. So I guess we'll find out in about a month. But they're definitely, I know they've been working on it quite a bit. Um, I'll show this. Another thing that I like to do because I have a surveyor that tends to put files in 30 different locations. Um, I actually like to link my boundary lines to either the record of survey or plat or something to where I don't have to go hunt down the file. With any object in AutoCAD and Civil 3D, if I select this polyline, I'll do the polyline first. In the properties palette, there's this X data or external data tab. No one uses it, but it's actually some good stuff. There's a spot you can put reference documents. So I tend to come in here and link in my documents. In this case, let's go with this record of survey. Record of survey, the filing number, whatever it is that you wanted to, and multiple files. I mean, you could link pretty much anything in here. I could throw the Alta in here if I wanted to. That way, anytime, as long as someone didn't go and move those stupid files, anytime I come into this file and I want to track down that record of survey, I can just come into my properties, look at the documents, and open that up. Same with deeds. So for whatever reason, I do it myself. I will draw on a deed, but I'll draw it on like zero layer or boundary layer. But I don't really know where that deed came from a lot of times. So you could download your deeds, section corner sheets, anything you can think of, and you can tie it together in your CAD file. And it's been around a while, but I really like it for my section sheets because you could, again, can tie. I don't even know where that point is. Oh. It references, well, to this individual line. So if I go and select this line, there's no reference there. So it's referenced in the drawing, but to that specific line. Same with details, like this street light, for example. I already have it referenced, it looks like.
Picture.
Could be, exactly. I think on this one, great. I think on this one, I even had them take pictures of fences to know what fence type, mason fence, chain link, because half the time Rob just does fence. Like, that's helpful. I know where a fence is, but what is that fence? So he's actually been really good about taking some pictures. And when I go put together either the plat or the record of survey or something, here, it's a fence. But even though I tied it to that street light, don't worry about it. Pretty good about taking pictures and seeing what that fence is. So anything you can think of can be linked in there. It's been around a while. It's just never used, but I like putting that in there. Mapping like my townhomes to the architectural plans. just some of those files that I really don't want to go search. All right, what deed is this? Let me verify a deed. I can just come in here quickly and grab either the deed or record of survey or whatever. And one of those things that may take a few extra minutes, but I feel like it saves me a ton of time and downstream, especially if I hand this off to somebody else in the office. You know, they don't have to wonder what deed we use to put in that boundary or those easements or something. So, um, yeah, again, a few minute extra was going to save me hours, I think, for the most part. So I like that. That's something simple, not a lot used, but it's right there, reference documents. Spec books, all that fun stuff. Anything else? I got a whole bunch of stuff, but sometimes I jump all over the place and lose you. So, do you guys have any questions before we break?
I know we're talking about putting the goals, that people are ask to try that. Will that work?
You guys want to watch me fumble through that? Let's see. I'm gonna do. All right. So we had begin. Did I say BFC? You want to remember what I did? I think so. Let's try this. BFC. So I got to begin. I got to end. All right. Let's give this a shot. Okay, let's make sure I saved that. I think I did. Okay, so begin B in BFC. Then curve on curve. Okay, let's test it out. Oh, I hate that. Now let's see if that will work. Apparently, you can't just go and change the extension. Okay, how about now? We think it'll work? Someone want to bet me? $50. I'm gonna say, I don't know. I'm not gonna say. I don't think it did. I think it did worse than not work. Crash my machine. I said curve fit failed. Yeah, I don't think it did with the double code. To go out with a bang right now, I'm done. If it for some reason, wait, no, power. No, I just did a tangent right to it. Close. All right. If you guys have any questions, I'm here all day today, a little bit tomorrow. So if you want to go over anything else, if you have any questions, whatever civil related or not, just come over and hang out. So thanks for staying patient. I am going to let this recap thing go and just see how long